Welcome, Linda. Thank you for joining us today.
Great to be here, Vijay. Thank you.
So before I start, I would like to share with the audience, and actually the United video stole my thunder, but so be it. So Linda's here today for multiple reasons, but one is every year, as many of you know, we do an annual survey of digital transformation, and we get about 200 of America's leading companies to respond to the survey. And if the last 2 years, we've awarded we've recognized the leaders of digital transformation. And this year, I'm delighted to announce that United is the winner of this year's Digital Innovator Award. Let me just quickly give the other companies are not here, but in second place, we had Adobe, and the third place, we had Autodesk. And given that United is a traditional company that has outperformed two software companies, kudos to you, Linda, and your team for what you do at United. And the video said it all. I mean, we could just stop right now and go home. We already are home, unfortunately, but more serious. So that's just absolutely fantastic. That you. I should also say to the audience that there's no PR efforts. There's nothing. It's just a completely quantitative analysis of the responses to the survey. So once again, congratulations. And a quick word about the previous session. So thank you, Cody. Thank you, Martin. You know, I'm Indian, as everybody knows, and in India we have tens of thousands of gods for everything. But unfortunately, our gods were discovered, invented, I'm not sure what the right word is there, before computers. And so we don't have one for, can you please, one that you pray to say, I want the video link to be up for all my speakers. But with that, so your video showed sort of, the award was actually presented for a lot of things that you did before what you showed in the video, but let's just back it up. So give us a feel for United Airlines.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is a little bit of a before and after to COVID. As much as I don't like to talk about it, it's pretty real. Before COVID, we were flying 4,500 flights per day. A year ago, we had nearly 500,000 passengers fly us per day. To over 360 different locations. So we're an international airline. Things are a little different now. We actually announced our third quarter earnings last night, and we announced a $1.8 billion loss. You never want to hear that. Our capacity is down 70%, and our passenger revenue is down 84%. So it is not only breathtaking in the change, but it is breathtaking in just how fast it happened and how hard we have had to pivot. First into, frankly, survivor mode. When you have more customers by a lot that are asking for refunds than are booking new tickets, and you're still trying to fly a schedule, it becomes a pretty existential threat. And so, we spent a lot of time really battening down the hatches, focusing on liquidity, raising cash, just hunker down, as some of the folks have talked about, waiting like everyone for this pandemic, not only to go by, but that there's a vaccine and people come back to flying.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's got to be one of the, it's clearly one of the most affected industries. I suspect retail is another one. And it's sort of interesting that even though we didn't make much progress in terms of the government, but the fact that they were actually considering a relief bill just for the airlines alone speaks to the importance of the sector as part of our essential infrastructure. And, obviously it's a hugely complex logistics business, and you actually have humans that you carry as opposed to most logistics companies. You also have cargo, of course. Talk to us about the role of the Chief Digital Officer and how important digital is at a company, like United, at United.
Yeah. Well, I've got a fairly broad mandate, so I support and lead all of the critical technology functions, whether that's scheduling the airline, the crews that fly the flights, passenger reservations and managing that, our website, our digital, all of our digital channels, cybersecurity, of course. But I also actually have the digital strategy side for our channels, our digital products and analytics team as well. So, a little bit broader, the digital channels, it's not just the technology delivery, but the strategy and the product roadmaps as well.
Yeah, and I've got to believe, I grew up in an operations research PhD program, and I switched to information systems. And sort of you understand the role of algorithms and software. I mean, that's been the story for the longest time. And then, when something like the pandemic hits, if you were to interpret what you just said in terms of the reduction in volumes, and clearly you have to adjust routes, and all of a sudden you have a massive operations research problem that you have to optimize. And I'm sure, obviously you have to cut flights and reschedule crews and so on. So your organization, I guess, is central to all of that.
Yeah, little known fact, I've got an industrial engineering degree too. So I was dusting off all of that OR stuff as well. But yeah, so I mean, on the way down, as we were trying to conserve cash, and just to give you a feel for just how hard and fast we fell, there was a Tuesday in April that we flew less than 10,000 passengers. We have 14,000 pilots, to give you just a ratio of how that works. So really profound, quick change to that. And so we are an essential service. We are grateful to the government for the CARES Act funding. It allowed us to keep people on the payroll. It also required us to fly to all the places we were flying pre-pandemic. So that meant a lot of planes were flying with very, very few people on it. As we were trying to manage through all of that, we were starting already to think about what is the most efficient way to do that. How do you maybe start with a smaller aircraft, and if you have people that are flying, move up to it. But all the while, we're working on something that had just, was not a pre-pandemic idea, which was a super focused on cleanliness and safety. So you see in that video, the touchless kiosks that we now have out in all of our airports. That wasn't even a glint in anybody's eye in February, yet by May we had it rolled out. And so we had to pivot very quickly to what our customers were looking for and trying to understand.
Yeah, two things. One is that statistic that you just mentioned of having more pilots than passengers really drives the point home, right? Especially for a high volume business.
Fortunately, yeah.
Hopefully we will all get past it. And I just look at my own sort of life. I was probably on, I'm a $1 million+ miler on United, and I used to fly probably at least twice a month, and I haven't flown since March. So I'm those people who's not flying, actually not flying anybody. But one of the things in the video, which I think didn't jump out because I read it more than I saw it. So there's people with apps, and we can go touchless pretty easily. There's some touch, of course. And I think you were alluding to the fact, or at least I read it, that you've actually even built touchless through QR codes for passengers who don't have the app.
Yeah, well, there's also another shift that's happened. And so when those 9,000 people were flying in April, they were truly essential workers. Many of them were medical workers flying from the West Coast to the East Coast to support where the virus was most critical. What we've seen a shift to now is what we call visiting friends and relatives traffic. These are people that are going for longer periods of time. They're probably visiting relatives because, frankly, there isn't anything else to do in most places. A lot of leisure destinations are closed. Businesses are certainly closed. I mean, our business traffic is down 85%, to give you a feel. It's all leisure. And so those people tend to be occasional flyers, or not loyal flyers, which means they probably don't have the app. And so we really focused on how can we get that experience for them. And yeah, we've got a resurgence. The QR code is back. And so we're having people scan that and be able to use it in the airports. And we're looking very soon to make changes to our United app to make that guest experience, that occasional user, have a more close to the same experience as someone who's logged in.
Yeah, in my opening remarks, I actually spoke about your acceleration of efforts towards where the current customers are, which are these leisure travelers. So Talk us through sort of, this is back it up to a strategy level for a minute or two. So when you think about the airline business, what are the success factors for United? Because from a passenger perspective, the frequent flyer program is obviously one of them, but everybody's offering sort of similar offerings.
I agree with that. I mean, we fly fundamentally the same kinds of airplanes. They're either made from Boeing or by Airbus. We fly to fundamentally the same places. And so you have to have a differentiation. And so we think about it in two ways. First and foremost, it's our employees. It's those frontline employees that you as a customer are seeing every day in the lobby, on the airplane, in the airports, and the ones you don't see that are managing your bags and all of that. The second is technology and how we can actually use technology to reduce friction and reduce all that stress there is to flying in these days. And there's a nice intersection between them where we want to give information to our employees so that they can provide great service. An example of that is what we're doing with our flight attendants. Everybody sees that they have iPhones. They usually see it when they're ordering a meal. But the flight attendants actually now have a lot of information about you, what your premier status is, what your experience on your last 5 flights were. If you're an accelerating customer, or maybe someone who's been gone for a long time is now back, providing that information to the flight attendant then allows them to create that personal experience with you, the customer.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed was, when I got stuck in Denver and Chicago and I had to be rebooked, and then it was a race to the red carpet club so you can dodge the lines at the airport. But now I get off a plane and I find that I already have, you guys have rebooked me onto another flight. Saves an enormous amount of stress.
Yeah.
How those applications were built, and sort of there's a platform that you need that I believe you now own to make all of this happen. So the reservation. So
it probably is an interesting pivot that's happened over time, probably in a lot of technology shops and in other industries. But in 1992, United Airlines, or actually it was Continental at the time, outsourced their core reservation system. And the idea was, let's just figure out how cheap we can run it. And quickly we realized that it actually is a strategic asset. And it's not how cheap you can run it, it's how quick you can respond to changes and how you can make those changes in a rapid way. I am really proud of the team of technology professionals that I lead. They embed themselves with the rest of the airline, and they're in there experimenting, innovating. I might add, not on safety. We don't experiment on safety, but pretty much anywhere else we try things. Mm-hmm. And we are now, because we insourced that platform back to us last year. We now have a lot more control and ownership, and frankly, a lot less bureaucracy to make those changes, to try something without a fully baked 4-month project plan. Let's just try it and see what happens. And so much of what we do, we leverage our scale. One of the things, in addition to rebooking, we have something called Connection Saver. And Connection Saver is just like it sounds. You are landing late into a hub airport because of a weather delay, and you realize that your next flight, which might be the last flight of the day, is leaving in 6 minutes, in another part of the terminal. We know that too. In days gone by, we might have just took off, but we now use really a pretty sophisticated network of data to make the decision about whether we should wait for you. If there's other people on the plane that maybe have another connection and we create a big downline problem, we might not hold the plane for you. But we know the weather, we know all these things, and we can now make that hold. We started that in Denver, found some things, listened to our frontline about what worked and didn't, and then rolled it to each of our hub airports and now the whole network in a way we couldn't do if we didn't own the platform.
Yeah, and I think that's really powerful because, one of the things, the story we've told for years is you really have to have some differentiating IPS. That's, in this case, it's your operational platforms, including your customer platform. We've got some great questions from the audience. I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, to answer them pretty quickly. Can you talk about the changes in strategy that United undertook? So the idea is you charge you unbundle the for a long time, you pay extra for baggage, pay for your seat, but now you're moving to eliminating things like flight change fees. And so there's a lot of pivoting going on. So can you speak to sort of your thinking there?
Yeah, two-part question. On the first part, in terms of unbundling, we did that all with data. Every time we realize customers, whatever they say, they are price sensitive. And when there's a competitive airline who's flying the same route and has an unbundled product, we were losing customers because they were picking that cheaper fare, not understanding the bundle. So we had to unbundle to give customers the same choice. On change fees, that's one that, frankly, we were talking about before the pandemic hit. It's baggage fees. There is actually a cost to us in terms of the employees that move the bags, in terms of the fuel it takes to carry the bag. Change fees is one that it's pretty hard to find a good reason why it's there. But our investors were pretty focused on it and saying you didn't want to have that revenue evaporate. So we took advantage of the fact we didn't have any revenue anyway, and we blew it up. So good for customers.
There is a little bit of a silver lining, I guess. Let's ask you an optimistic question also from the audience. Pandemic aside, I wish we could all say that today. Where do you see United Airlines 10 years from now?
Oh, I think we are using this pandemic to accelerate and improve our airline actually faster than we did before. We intend on coming out stronger and better and more customer friendly in the end. So technology will have a bigger feel. Our NPS scores, we're very focused on those, and they're continuing to go up. But I think the industry might have been a little late to the game, but certainly keeping customers happy and wanting to choose our airline is the key. And we're laser focused on that even today.
That's the theme of this year's conference, accelerating through the turn. And so, you're really talking about this is going to be a tough period for you, until something resolves around the pandemic. Right. But this is the time, I think, what you're saying, to invest in sort of the capability. Last question, this is 15 seconds. What are some of the things you are working on that we might, in the near term, that we might expect to see in the future?
Yeah. Well, if you do travel and you are at O'Hare, go check out the high B20 gates, B20 through 24 or something like that, where we are really inventing the gate of the future. The gate of the future has a lot more technology. Why are people waiting in line to talk to a gate agent when they have the app or a QR code on their phone, as an example? So that we can actually drive a lot more technology to that experience. And if you still want to go wait in line or you still want to talk to a gate agent, they're certainly going to be there to help, but someone will give you choice.
I think that's a really good point to close on, the gate of the future, because I think that is sort of the whole surrounding ecosystem for flying. Thank you, Linda, for your time. We know how busy you must be during this pandemic, and I'm sure every day. But thank you, and congratulations again on the award. And we were delighted you could be here with us today. Thank you again.
Vijay, thanks again. Bye-bye.